1, 2, 3, funky.
That's more like it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another one. Now, as you saw, I got the EG running, just giving it a run up to temperature, you know, keep everything lubricated, things like that. But I also wanted to get these out of the passenger footwell. These are DC2 shock absorbers, or that's the most important part anyway, and they are front shock absorbers. I'm going to be using them on the EM1, that's the plan. So I'm upgrading the front shocks. The rear shocks from the DC2, although I've got them, they won't fit. They're a different fork type, or you know, the mount to the low control arm on the rear suspension slightly differently, but these should work. So will it work just fitting the front shock absorbers? Yes, because the Integra Type R front shock absorbers are a lot stiffer, and the rear ones as well, you'd want them stiffer if you are lowering the car, which we will be doing, and putting stiffer springs on, which we will be doing with the eibach springs. But the eibach rear springs that you use to lower this car aren't as stiff as the DC2 stock springs, which would cause a problem. You don't want to over spring your shock absorber. But the front springs are a bit stiffer than the DC2 shocks, and I know the shock absorbers on the DC2 will be a much better match than the EM1 standard ones. So that's why we're fitting the front DC2 shock absorbers only, with the eibach lowering springs both front and rear. Now I wanted to double check the spring on this particular one. It looks like it's flat at the top, which means I need to get the correlating springs, correlating eibach springs, as the rear springs, I believe, have a coil very similar to the bottom, where it just stops like that at both the bottom and the top, whereas these, it looks like they're flat at the top in order to fit in that strut top mount. Now I'm also trying to get these off without a spring compressor. Now we've got plenty of threads to play with here to loosen off the nut, you know, to basically untighten it just enough so that we can then get the gun on it, put some sort of wood or something here and put our feet against it, and then gun it off, and hopefully it'll fire away from us rather than hit us and do some damage. Well, that's the plan anyway. That's how I've done it before. I have removed springs from shock absorbers before without spring clamps and spring compressors, and these aren't under that much pressure. Obviously I'm saying that now and it will shoot across the driveway, but yeah, they aren't as packed with energy as some shocks and springs. So I finally got the spring off the shock absorber, and I had to do a bit of sketchy stuff. But as you can see here, the bump stops pretty much toast. Here's the top mount. I had to use a normal drill, a bit adapter and a bit to get onto the end of that. Will it focus? I think it wants to focus, but you get the idea. The shock absorber then has come off nice and clean, no leaking whatsoever, which is perfect. I've also tested it, and if you're curious how to test a shock absorber to see if it's good, it should be very difficult to press down, and then it should very, very slowly come back up by itself. Now, if you imagine the spring would be helping it to go back up, but what you're looking for is that it's not stuck, it doesn't stick, or it doesn't shoot back up, and then you know it's toast inside. But yeah, the shock absorber on this side is mint. Just need to now get the eibach lowering spring, sort of build this up, but I'm sort of tempted to, you know, there's not much metal here now, sort of tempted to give it a bit of a brush up and a clean and a fettle, or whether I should just throw it on as it is, because that's going to be covered by the spring anyway, I don't know. I'll probably just build it up together as it is. These are pretty much scrap. I don't know anybody who would want some standard DC2 springs, nor would you be able to tell that they are what they are. So I doubt they'd sell. But yeah, progress. So that is 2 shock absorbers acquired, ready for the eibach lowering springs. I've had to call it a day because it's getting a little bit late, and we had 2, not 1 but 2 cheap tool sacrifices. One of the bits for one of the drills, not the actual impact drill, believe it or not, but one of the bits for the which one was it? Was it this one? Yeah, just the normal drill. One of the bits for that sheared off. That's another one. And oh yeah, we bent a Allen key. Yeah, because of the tops of the shock absorbers being a little bit problematic, a little bit stiff, not seized, but a little bit stiff, just because the threads were a bit gunked up. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, depending on the style of shock absorber, they might not expand by themselves. It is a good way to test the resistance both ways, to make sure that the shock absorbers aren't blown out, and of course check where the shafts seal into the body of the shock absorber just underneath these covers, so when you've got the tops off they come off, and you can check for oil or like any sort of residue. If they are blown out, then they'll definitely be leaking or very damp. But some shock absorbers do extend by themselves, and others will stay perfectly still and you'll have to pull them out. Now, normally it's twice as hard to pull them out as what it is to push them in, and that's because the shock absorber's rebound is normally stiffer than its bound. But yeah, it's easy to check by pushing them down and pulling them back out, and how much resistance they give you. They should be equal and feel very resistant to you pushing and pulling them, and that's what makes a good shock absorber. Also, while I was working outside, I got today's HelloFresh order, so I need to unbox this and lob it all in the fridge. So that sort of concludes today's video. These are like the Poor Mans Coilovers, if you will, and I just sort of remembered after editing that final piece that I never really recorded an outro, so this is that. I do want to extend though some thank yous to those guys commenting on the videos. I did used to do this quite religiously, and I've sort of fallen out of the habit, and I need to get back into that because it is great for the algorithm and it helps me with the channel if you guys are commenting and liking the video, so thank you for that. So UK Boost, Leadfoot Ash, Steve B, Dave's in his garage, 50 Spence and Lewis Chafer over the last couple of videos have commented. I'll just double check the other one now. But yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you guys very much for doing so. Yeah, so it really does help out the channel, it really helps out the videos. And with that, this is the end of the video, so thank you very much for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.
Makes the night